tonight we're going to go through the creation of storytelling, right? That means looking deep inside yourselves, thinking about what you want to convey, what message matters, and how we share that space with each other. Oftentimes, we are coming to these meetings, we are listening, and we forget that the early child care community is not just a community of parents. We have grandparents, we have uncles and aunts, we have child care providers. In the child care provider workforce, we also come in many different categories. You have child care owners, you have child care staff, maybe you're a staffer who does grant writing, maybe you're an assistant to an educator, maybe you're someone who works in a child care center developing curriculum. So we want to do a deep dive on what does your story look like, how we can incorporate and share this space, and what that has to do with the legislative session, and how we can share that story when we're talking to a journalist. Maybe we're drafting an op-ed. Maybe it's something as simple as social media, right? Using the tools and the power of TikTok and Facebook and Instagram to really get our point across. So we welcome you tonight to turn on your cameras. This is all about group participation, group conversation as we grow and learn together. I'll pass it to our MC, our facilitator extraordinaire, Derek Hall, to take it from here.
Well done, Eva. Thank you so much, everyone. Good evening or whatever time it is where you are. My name is Derek Hall, and I'm going to be your facilitator and MC for the night. I have a 5-year-old daughter whose early childhood education I am very supportive of and really appreciate the work that you all are doing. As you know, as y'all know, paying for early child care education is not easy. So first and foremost, always thank you for the work, no matter what level you're engaged in it at. I'm going to share my screen just so we can have a little PowerPoint. All right, and we're going to start with, let me see if this will work. Can you all still see the slideshow?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right, so what we're going to do is exactly what it says on the screen, y'all. What I'd like is if you could, in the chat, if you could just put your name. A lot of folks already have their names up, but that's fine. Your pronoun, and then your role in the community, or your organization affiliation. So for me, I would say Derek Hall, pronoun is he, him, his. And my role is I'm a parent, of a kid, and in this space, your facilitator as well. So I'll just give a few moments for folks who are able to go ahead and put that in the chat. Little behind the scenes moment. It's also an opportunity to see who has the ability to type and if that's a thing we want to do in the future. All right, so looking in the chat. Thank you, Tashi. I see Usario, thank you. Meryl, thank you, Meryl. If you're looking for the chat option, it looks like a little speech bubble, typically. It says chat. Thank you, Maria. I see you. Little Garden Daycare in Waterbury. Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Izzy. Danielle, thank you. Okay, we got Bridgeport in the building. We love to see it. Okay. Danbury. Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right. We got a lot of parent ambassadors today. Hey, Latoya, thank you. Good to see you again. Elizabeth, thank you. All right, Waterbury, Danbury folks. If you are just coming in, we're putting our name, pronouns, and role or in the community or our organizational affiliation. Excellent. So those are going to keep rolling in, but I wanted to just give us an opportunity to kind of see who's in the room, right? From what part of Connecticut? Thank you. Let's see what's next on the slide. This is a surprise for me. You ever make slides and you forget what's on them? Let's see. So it is still Black History Month. I am a racial justice educator and facilitator by trade. And so as I was thinking about the workshop that we wanted to run today, similar to Eva, it's an opportunity to do some of that internal work, like the why work. And so I just wanted to start with this quote from Coretta Scott King, who is not just Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife. She was an educator, an advocate, and a community organizer in her own right. And this is one quote that I thought resonated with the goal of today. So Coretta Scott King said, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members." Compassionate actions of its members. If you're here today, you are someone who is interested in the action part of advocacy and community building, right? How do we change hearts and minds so that we can shift and use community power to shift legislative power and to create more resources for early childhood education? So I just wanted to start us there with the words of Coretta Scott King, a Black community organizer in the world in which we live. All right, here's our agenda for the day. Eva kind of walked us through the welcome and purpose. We're going to go over some community agreements in this space, real short, real easy. So we're going to have some breakout rooms. So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page on how to show up as our best selves. Daniela, I see a hand.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're changing slides, but I can't see it change. I don't know if I'm the only one who's having that issue. Just up.
Oh, it's not changing slides.
Nope.
Meryl's okay. So yeah, just so you know.
How about?
And it's not in slideshow mode either.
Oh, okay. Let me do this.
Derek, while we're waiting, do you want me to launch the poll? Who are we?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that'll be great, Izzy.
Got to know each other.
Yeah, so what you'll see, you want to walk them through it, Izzy? Go ahead.
It's very simple. We're just trying to understand who's in the room. Early childhood educator, parent, advocate, elected official. Oh, slight typo there. Sorry to our electeds, and other. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. Just looking at who's in the room. So a lot of early educators in the room. We got some parents.
Once we get to about 70%, I'll end it and share it for everyone. So you can just continue on until that happens. I'll just do it automatically.
Excellent. Let me see if I can get this share to work. Thank y'all for being patient and bearing with us. Okay, so now you can see the slides in, but it's not in slideshow mode, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah,
hit.
but you can still see it.
Okay, yeah, excellent. Let me see if
it might be what screen you're sharing.
Right. Did it change or is it the same on your screen?
Same.
Okay. Do you see agenda for the day, for today? Okay, excellent. And if I click this, do you see community agreements?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave it in this mode. This is fine. All right, excellent. So this was the quote, just to bring it up. You can see that now? All right, excellent. Good. All right, so this is the our agenda for the day. We're gonna do a quick virtual icebreaker. Then we're gonna go into kind of the content portion of the day, right? So we're gonna think critically about when we talk about early childhood education and advocacy and what communities were are most impacted or by the work or influenced by the work. We're gonna think about who's left out of those conversations. So you're gonna hear from some staff around that. And then we're going to think really critically and share about how change happens around us, right? Give you some additional tools to the ones you're already using. And then we're going to harness some social media for good, because social media is not always great, but we're going to do what we can. So we're not going to talk through the really particular parts of how to, start Instagram. We're not going to go there, but we're going to give you some other strategies on how to use social media effectively for advocacy. And then we're going to go over the legislative process just so you can understand how, laws happen and during what times, and use that strategically as you're thinking about how you're going to advocate for early childhood education. Izzy, looks like you ready?
Yeah, so just to share with everyone, we've got about 57% early educators, 17% parents, 30% advocates, 4% elected officials, and 13% other. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. All right, and then we're going to close, hopefully having more tools in our toolbox than when we started. Any questions about the agenda and where we're going today? You can put it in the chat or raise a virtual hand. And then we also have staff looking at the little squares. So if you want to raise a real hand, we'll see that too. Linda, thank you for turning your camera on. Excellent. All right. If there are no questions, we will go right along. We are right on time. All right. Here are the community agreements that we thought would be helpful in this space. You all know, as we pull, folks together thinking about advocacy and community organizing, it's important to focus on power and possibility. What do we mean by that? Super easy to get distracted by and to talk a lot about the barriers to the work, right? They are many, right? And we know what those are. But what that can sometimes do is that can drain us of our energy. And it's also oftentimes not an effective use of our time, especially in this virtual format. So today we want you to focus on the power that you have to influence or to, advocate on behalf of, right? And the possibility that that creates. That tends to feed our work and keep us moving in a positive direction. So today we really want to agree to focus on power and possibility. The next one is move up, move up. If you're someone who's a little bit quieter, we want you to move up your speaking in this space if you can. You're sharing in the space. If you're someone who is oftentimes asked to speak on behalf of or to share ideas or next steps, I want you to move up your listening. All right. I want you to move up your affirmation of other folks in this space. I want you to move up your ability to value other ideas in this space. All right. Both of these are moving up just in our different skills. All right. Always honor intent and impact. Oftentimes, right, as we're sharing ideas, if you rub up against somebody or you share something that impacts someone, take responsibility for that impact. Maybe say, oh, I see that might have, come out wrong. Let's, connect on it or share something differently. Don't just say, oh, I didn't mean it that way. Really lean into taking responsibility and being accountable to what we share in the space and how we show up. And then the last one is always share talk time. There's a lot of brilliance in the room. Make sure that we're providing space to hear from people that we don't typically hear from. And that might literally be saying, hey, I want to open this space to people that we haven't heard from as much, is a great way to invite those folks into a conversation. Okay. So just be aware of your talk time and make sure that we're sharing space. All right. That feels good to folks. If you can agree to these community agreements, just put a 1 in the chat for your boy, just so I know you are with me. That would be awesome. Right in the chat. Just the number 1. Come on, ones. I appreciate that. Populating. All right. I need to feel the community here. Good. All right. Now, this next part, I'm going to give you a prompt. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about it, and then we're going to break you into some small groups. All right. So this is also my indicator for my homie Izzy to start to create those small groups. Okay. All right. So I'm going to bring that up now. All right. As always, if there are any questions for clarity, comments, or concerns, put them in the chat. That seems to be one of the easiest ways to get information out during this session. All right. So your icebreaker is you're going to have maybe 5 minutes to talk and then we'll kind of bring it back together. What is your advocacy superpower? I'm going to put a few of our staff, maybe one or two, on blast. I want to hear from one or two of our staff. What's your advocacy superpower? When you think about that thing that you can do really well to influence folks to kind of grab hold of their power and connect with one another, what is your superpower? Meryl, Izzy, Eva, or Jennifer? Daniela as well. I see Eva's got her hand up right away. Can I hear from somebody we haven't heard from as much before Eva goes? Love you, Eva. Somebody we haven't heard from as much. Y'all see how I did that? Sharon talk time. Go ahead, Meryl. And then Eva, you hold it because you are up next for sure. Go ahead.
Okay. I would say my superpower is my freakish ability to remember numbers. So like today, I saw that there are 18,141 people kids getting subsidized by Care for Kids as of February 9th.
Nice. Thank you, Meryl. And Eva, please.
Say patience.
You did great. Patience. Good. All right. And Eva, just patience. How does that serve specifically the advocacy field?
Because when we are in advocacy and organizing, it's really about sharing space and really understanding that there are moments to be the leader and sharing your story, but there's also moments where you want to hear someone's story and really internalize that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, you all are going to do the same thing in a moment in these small groups. All right. You're going to share what your superpower is and maybe why does it serve you in your advocacy. Any questions before we break into the small groups? You can raise a hand. You can put it in the chat, whatever works for you. All right. Thank you all so much for going into that short, small group session. If you are able, I would just love to see just kind of what you came up with. So you don't have to put a whole bunch of words in there, but just if you want to throw into the chat what the superpower that you named, and this is also for folks who might not have gotten an opportunity to share, just throw it into the chat quickly. While you're doing that, I think my superpower is hopefully facilitation. I try to create some space and a container for people to have the conversations that need to be had. And oftentimes when we think about community building, community organizing, just that space container and somebody holding it, and giving people space to talk is a real benefit. All right, so I see the power of empathy, never to be discounted when I look at the world in which we live and the many conflicts that exist around us. There is a severe lack of empathy, systemic. We want to shift and change that. Thank you. All right, being genuine and creating a space for trust. Yep, thank you for that, Linda. I love a summary. I love a group summary. Get into it. Excellent. All right. Excellent. Thank you all so much for that icebreaker. It's really just an opportunity to just get your voice into the room. And if not your voice, then definitely your ideas. Next up, we have Eva Bermudez, who's going to walk us through who is left out when we think about advocacy in Connecticut for early childhood education. Or actually, I think it's Izzy. Did I do that wrong? It's Izzy. Yeah.
Both of us.
Both of y'all. Okay.
That's no
Excellent.
problem. And do you want to share the slide or should I?
I could do it if that's
Okay,
comfortable.
great. That's comfortable.
Cool.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Izzy Greenberg. I live in Middletown. I did actually want to show you. I have one quick screen share, if you don't mind, Derek. It won't be long.
Okay. My bad.
No, that was my fault. I forgot I wanted to do it. I just wanted to show you guys, if I can do it. So many things that you can do as the host. They give you like too many things. I just wanted to show you all this cute little map of Connecticut. Here's our little map. And as you all were saying, where you were from, I just stuck it on there. So look, we've got this whole missing corridor here. And one of the things we're going to talk about is like who's included, who's not included. And there's some geography to it. So before we started, I just wanted to show you that. And there may be some people here who live there, but didn't write it in the chat. So, definitely understand that. But just wanted to show you that we really have like this corridor represented very strong. So that's excellent. And also we've got work to do. So that's one thing I wanted to share before I start. Now, Derek, you can share a screen. So the thing that I was interested in talking about today is who's in, who's out when we're advocating for early childhood issues in Connecticut, and thinking specifically about our campaign to transform childcare in the state. You know, there's if you're talking about paid family leave, or you're talking about, well, that's a bad example. There's certain issues that really affect, you know, veterans only, or things that affect kind of smaller groups. Childcare, while a lot of people think that it is something that has to do with children only, really is an issue that affects our entire state. We've got the early care workforce, of which, and owners of childcare centers, home-based providers. That is one group that we often think of. We have families, and that's maybe the primary group we often think about, are children and families. And then we've got business leaders. We've got, I wouldn't even just say business leaders, I'd say our whole state's economy. And so as we craft our messaging, as we craft our advocacy and our actions, we really have to think about these three pillars of our movement, and including everyone and advocating for and working for a system that actually affects our economy, our families, and our workforce in equal ways, so that everybody is being lifted up, that all three of those are being lifted up, not one at the expense of others. And so, you know, it's an unusual situation to be working for something that is both good for business and good for, let's say, early childhood workforce. Those are sometimes groups that overlap. They are not always. And so what I wanted to just share was that one thing that we had talked about kind of before this meeting was the idea of centering, which I think is a concept often used in equity work as well, let me explain how I understand it. And Derek, you can correct me, but the way I understand it is that if we focus our advocacy on the individual or the group of individuals that are the most affected, most left out, most left behind, showing the most disparate outcomes, and that if we focus our efforts on that person, individual group, that the trickle effect, the ripple effect on all others, it'll basically lift all boats by, you know, focusing on that one. And so that's the concept of centering as I understand it. And so as we think about these three pillars, who we are centering in each of those is a little different. So when we're centering our early care workforce, we're often centering Black and Brown women who have been a majority of our state's early care workforce and the backbone of this workforce for a very, very long time. When we're thinking about owners, we may be thinking about a slightly different group. When we're thinking about families, what's unusual is that often when we're thinking about who's left behind in Connecticut with a lot of social issues, it is very often low-income families. It is very often families of color, immigrant families. It is often folks who tend to be on the margins for other issues. For this issue, though, it's a little bit different, because families who are not earning very much are eligible for state subsidy to help with childcare. Families who are earning a lot obviously can pay for childcare, although that is very few families in Connecticut. But those folks in the middle, this tends to be something where actually who's left out does tend to be by income, but also some geography and other issues. But if you think about who's left out, we're thinking about folks who are sort of that middle income, not making enough to afford to pay for it, but making too much to get subsidy. And so that's who we center when we're thinking about families. There's, of course, layers on that. We've got children who have different, you know, who are neurodivergent. We have families where there's one income earner. We have families who have different documentation status. So of course there's layers, and this is an oversimplification, but I do want you to just understand that primarily who's left out when it comes to this in terms of families are families in that middle income zone. Then when we're thinking about business leaders, you know, I was talking to a friend today whose wife, he's a firefighter. His wife was an early childhood educator, and she quit her job to care for her children because she couldn't afford childcare. That is exactly the problem we're trying to solve. We've got 100,000 open jobs in Connecticut, and families who are choosing for one caregiver to leave the workforce to care for children because they can't afford to have that child in care. Our economy is suffering for that, to the tune of potentially billions of dollars per year. So anything that we advocate for spending feels like we're asking for so much, but remember how much we're losing by not solving this crisis. So I just wanted to kind of start there and help us understand that as we advocate, we need to keep all of those different buckets in mind and really try to think about, well, who is left behind, who is struggling the most. And it may surprise you, the answer you come up with, but also it's different in these three buckets. So I guess that's what I wanted to cover. Eva, was there anything else you wanted me to go over?
I the only thing I wanted to add in addition to what Izzy said, is even people like Izzy, myself, and Meryl, people that you hear in this space often have these moments where we have to remind ourselves that we don't know all the voices that exist in the space. I had my own check myself moment recently. I went to Daniela and I went to a parent PLTI training, a parent leadership training, a conference, and one of the breakout rooms that we were invited to participate in was full of grandparents and aunts and uncles, and sure, I'm aware that there are aunts, uncles, and grandparents who really do the primary role of parenting, right? Through a whole list of reasons. But hearing from those voices, the lack of resources, how DCF and other commissions often forget how to help them or that they even exist, to me was an awakening moment of I have to check myself and the vocabulary I use, how and in these advocacy conversations, how I share the space. And I think it's important for all of us to have accept those moments and learn from those moments. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you so much for that, Eva and Izzy. On time, per usual, fam. All right. So we have these three lenses, right? We have early care workforce and owners. We have families, right? Specifically those who make too much, to be a part of the subsidy, but not enough to pay for early child care education. And then business leaders, right? Who have folks leaving the workforce in order to take care of little ones. I want you to put into the chat of these three groups, who do you maybe have some influence over? Who do you maybe interact with when you think about your networks? Who could you influence in support of early childhood education? You can put that right into the chat. I see Eva with friends, but Eva, are your friends primarily early care workforce owners, or are they families, as they've been laid out here? What do you think? I see families, I see business leaders. Yep. We always, as organizers and advocates, want to be thinking about what is our network and who do we have influence over, right? We're refining our focus so that we can mobilize our communities in support of early childhood education. I see business leaders. Yeah, I would say that as well. I have a lot of access in my work to business leaders, and I could be doing some influencing work there. Yeah, be thinking about where the pockets of those communities or where those people are that you have access to. Where are they? Are they predominantly on social media? Are they folks that you work right alongside? Are they a part of your church? Are they a part of your community centers? Are they a part of your, just your family? Be thinking about where they are, because we're going to layer and bring some of that in. Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for bringing in geography. Let's do this. All right. So these were kind of the prompts. Thank you all for putting that into the chat. I see some folks being really active and I appreciate that. This is an opportunity to share out. I'd love to hear some voices with this next part. So hopefully you can see the discussion prompts. And so I'm thinking about, again, in this information that we just took in around those three kind of focuses, what feels new or important, or what information what you hear that maybe shifts the way or will inform the way that you do your advocacy. I'll maybe hear from one or two voices. What feels important about what Izzy just offered? You can unmute in chat or raise a hand, and we'll be looking for those who would like to speak.
I think Francesca. Francesca, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Eva.
Francesca, what? You asked your question?
I thought you were waving to your hand up. Were you fixing your camera?
No, I was fixing my camera, but I can say. Can you just repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so of the information that Izzy just shared, what feels important? What maybe feels new? Or how might that information inform the way you advocate for early childhood education?
To me, what's important is the early care workers and helping owners. So then we could then help families. Because if those two things are not aligned or are not good, then we wouldn't be able to afford or be able to give childcare to families.
Yeah, I hear that. Thank you, Francesca. Excellent.
You're welcome.
You know,
I'm gonna try to mute myself.
I gotcha. Maybe one more. What feels important? You can also put it in the chat. Thank you for the translation in the chat too. But I'd love to hear some voices. All right, people are still coming in, huh? All right, welcome to all the new folks that have come into the space. Yeah, I'll just quickly say that I was someone who thought that early childhood education, when I think about the most marginalized, was poor Black and brown people writ large, whether they work for, in childcare or not. And, when I talked to Izzy and listened, to kind of what she just shared with you all, it made me think differently about class. I was like, oh, there are people like myself, I co-parent. We're not together, but my co-parent she was laid off from her job, and she had to, stay home, and instead of going out back into the workforce, she was like, I really want to take care of our young one because we can save some money there. So it was actually better for our families for her to stay home. So I didn't think about that before, and how a lot of people are in that position. So I think for me, I want to talk to other folks who are like me, having that experience where we make too much to get subsidy, but not enough to easily carry the burden of childcare. Thank you all so much for taking that in. Next up, we have, how does change happen in the early childhood education sphere? I think that is...
It's me.
It's Eva.
It's me, right? Okay. So change happens. The best example that most of you on this call know is our morning without childcare, right? So some of you have been part of this fight for a decade plus, right? Some of you have been part of this fight before I was even involved in this fight. And for different reasons, change has been slow. It's been like a turtle moving and wiggling around trying to get to some sort of finish line. Now we came together. So our first tackling of making change happen was finding unity in our voices. We created this coalition, organizations and parent groups said, you know what, we need to band together find unity in how we convey a message. We did that with Morning Without Childcare. We also did that by being really bold. Typically, we, on a normal year before Childcare for Connecticut's Future, we would ask for 50 million, 10 million pieces of the pie, asking for a legislative proposal here and another one there, but not quite thinking about asking for full transformation all in one moment. And then we went ahead in 2022 when we launched that legislative year, we asked for $700 million. At first, legislators were shocked. They were completely taken off guard. In live hearings, they didn't even know what to say. And then in those same live hearings, they laughed at us. They laughed at parents. They laughed at providers. Some of you in this room right now saying that's crazy talk. Why in the world would you ever ask for $700 million? You're never going to get it. And you know, we kind of showed them. We showed them with statistics. We showed them with our stories, and we were able to successfully get, you know, 400 million more dollars into the system after many people said it was impossible. But change happened because we came together. With the Morning About Childcare being our catalyst, right? That ignition to unity, to finding a path, to doing something about it. We were able to push the legislators and remind legislators that we do have a voice, we do have a say, and we're not alone. It's not just one person, it's not just two people, it's hundreds of people saying enough is enough. We need these changes right now. So in the how we get to change happen even further, because I know everyone on this call wants the billion-dollar transformation tomorrow, and we're working towards that goal, right? The goal of $1 billion+ invested in early education. We need to make sure that we're on the same page. Again, we see eye to eye on messaging, that we have agreement as to what we want to change and an understanding of how we're going to change it. So we do hope like this advocacy training goes into some basics and then digs a little deeper on Saturday. But in the course of all of our events, in the course of a year, when you guys pop in once a month and you come here and there, we will be taking the opportunity to take your thoughts, you know, your stories, incorporating them into our big picture and making sure that whatever demands we have to elected officials are not my words. They're not, you know, Daniela's words or just one person. It's everyone having that same idea together when we're asking those legislators. So summary, change happens when we come together and we have an idea and we're putting the work behind that idea.
Thank you, Eva. Excellent job. Yeah, powerful vision for the future, right? Mobilize coalitions with shared interest. Find power in the voices and the experiences of folks in those groups. Find a unified, clarified message, right? That everyone's on the same, and then make a big ask, you know, go big. Yeah, great advice. Anything that folks would add, feel free to put it into the chat. How does change happen where you are? Anything that we might have missed or that you want to lift up before we go to the next speakers? You all are doing great. All right, Izzy's given a lot of information in the chat, a lot of resources there. Anything that we might have missed, something that's burning in your mind, this piece is really important to creating change in our communities, something that was not already said.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking that change happened by making affirmative action.
Say more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we make affirmative action, as I know firsthand, then we can start making change by participating more, testifying more, showing up, protesting more. But it has to take a team, a unity, not just a handful of providers. If we don't come together as a collective individual and show these legislators that, listen, we need a change, we're gonna make affirmative action. Yes, the morning without childcare was a tip of the iceberg, but we have to make some serious affirmative action. Okay, like 30 minutes. Say 30 minutes without, I'm going to be late for 30 minutes. We're not affecting their pocket. We're not telling the corporation that, listen, we are serious. We need these bills to be passed. You need to take us seriously. Okay, you're going to be 30 minutes late. I could see with that. We need to make serious affirmative action, and we need to make changes, and we need to show up at their doorstep if we have to. Sit there. And that's why I think that these changes will happen and they will take us serious.
Powerful words, right? I just took just some quick notes. Yeah, show up in unity, not just a handful of providers, but like a lot. You need numbers. The morning without childcare was the tip of the iceberg. We have to hit corporations and legislative groups, municipalities in their pockets, business folks as well. Yeah, major. I in my organizing work, for example, thinking about like the desegregation of the bus lines in Birmingham, Alabama, folks protested for months, didn't ride buses for months in order to hit the pockets of the bus company and in that way the city, in order to push for desegregated legislation. That's something to think about. What would a concerted long-term effort be? And, how do we support very vulnerable communities as they are engaged in that form of protest? Yeah, great thinking, everyone. Good. Y'all moving right along. I think it's time to talk about that social media. Danny, how do we harness the powerful beast that is social media in practical support of early childhood education?
Yeah, right on. I will just jump right in. I was actually gonna what Ava was saying before, that was sort of what I'm talking about more in the overall arching thing, is that the internet is huge, specifically social media. It's very, very crowded as well. And so that's why when you develop a brand or a voice, you have to be really consistent with it. And it's sometimes hard, especially because when you're in advocacy, things change and your path might change. You might have different ideas, but your voice can always stay the same. Your ideas can still be interchanging. So it's really important to maintain that consistency, even if it's just, we're not really talking about how to post, but it's really important to kind of be consistent with posting as well, across all platforms, whether you're using Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or I guess it's called X now, or TikTok. Definitely be consistent with your posts. Everything is run on like algorithms, and so we want to keep, especially with hashtags, on certain ones, you want to just keep consistent with those as well. And that's more of like a how-to, which I know I'm not really breaking and all of that down. But I think when I was thinking about what to say, I thought of a few reasons that social media is helpful for advocacy. And the biggest thing I could think of was that it provides a massive platform for networking. So whenever you post, or if you're sharing something, you can think that if you're sharing something that we posted on CCFCT's Instagram, all of your followers are then going to see it. So that's broadening the network. And you can also hit legislators on there. You can hit other organizations, as well as companies. And it's also very cost effective, because you can all kind of promote a common cause. So obviously for us, early education. And it also offers a lot of resources to inform and collect information from other parents, and family members, as well as teachers, providers, and the overall community. Sorry, I was speaking a little fast. Sorry, Sandra. um, and so to engage effectively also, when you're thinking about sort of who to follow, you can follow members of your target audience, and also look at who they're following. So if you're following specific legislators, you might want to also see who they're following. And obviously that you also want to broaden that as much as possible. So if you're focused in one area of Connecticut, maybe you can open it up to the entire state, because you never know, again, when it comes to networking, who knows who and who's going to help spread your message. Also, it's very important, I think we forget, I know I forget this, is to engage in conversations. If people are commenting on things, whatever the issue that you're posting about, even if it's an event, just always make sure that you're following along, and spreading and sharing posts. I think I mentioned that already. We also have Instagram. Izzy, I don't know if you wanted to share our page. Yeah, thank you. So a big thing right now on Instagram, especially with TikTok, is Reels, which breaking down the best way to communicate is hard. Obviously your audience is going to change and evolve. But you always want to have a very clear and simple message, I think, on, especially if you have a lot of writing on things, people might miss it. But as long as it's clear and simple, and also goes with, your messages can change, but you usually have like an overall voice and message. And I think a lot of times with social media, we create images of things. And so we want to be able to have the passion there, but also be real. We don't want to just have like I think it's a big thing on TikTok right now, where people are kind of creating these lifestyles of like what they wish their life could be like. And sometimes I think it's important to also just be extremely real, because people can see that, and they can read through the sort of that background noise. And also, I guess, obviously focusing on the issues that you guys think are the most important. So sometimes you can prioritize what you want to be pushing week by week if you want. You can even do like a monthly breakdown of how you want to spread events, or even just news. What we've tried to do on our Instagram, then we actually have been posting like a lot of our articles that we've been mentioned in. I think Reels right now are doing very well across a lot of different platforms. So you can edit and just make things a little shorter as well. And people really seem to like that, especially live photos. They tend to do better than graphics too, which is a lot of fun. But I think for advocacy, social media, using it to kind of spread the message, spread your message specifically, but also to share. That's a huge thing between organizations, between communities, is sharing each other's things, and also just promoting and showing that we're building a community, that we have a base, we have a platform, and we need to use it. Yeah.
Excellent. I
Thank
took
you.
some very light notes of what Danny just shared with us. So much brilliance there. If I could just lift up a few, really get in your mind, like, comment, share, right? Use Childcare for Connecticut's IG as a hub. Whoever they follow, you follow. What they like, you like. But they share, you share. Comment, comment. I'll name, what, and I don't know the specific rules. So Danny, check me on this. I know we're getting into the particulars of IG, but when you comment, isn't there like a certain amount of characters that really lift it up? I thought I had heard that.
Yo creo que escuché
Oh,
eso.
are there fireworks? Okay, cool. You're just so excited
Fuegos
about
artificiales, sí, fantástico.
Hold on, we
the
just swapped translation to Ava. So Sandra, just letting you
sorry.
know.
Are we good now? Or
We're good. I'm sorry. We had a little bit of a translation glitch. We fixed it.
yeah. I was going to say for comments and things, being as interactive as possible, even if you're not commenting, liking things, it boosts your algorithm, and that's always important. Comments actually do better, and it makes your algorithm like a little better. I shouldn't say a lot. It's all about how much you're on and how much your followers are on. So it's, social media is a beast to tackle. And things are hit or miss a lot. So
Yep. Yeah, and like Izzy said, comment on all our posts, share them if you can. Any questions for clarity or before we move to our next speaker? We're making good time. And again, I'm putting information in the chat if you're a person who wants to read there. Okay. I just always want to provide opportunities for folks to clarify or ask questions if they need. Excellent job, everybody. Next up, I think we have Merrill with our Connecticut legislative process.
Okay. So Connecticut has a part-time legislature that meets every year. In even years like this one, it's a short session, which means it's February to the beginning of May. And in the odd numbered years, we have a long session. The long session is where we do a 2-year budget and where any individual legislator can introduce a bill. This year, as I said, is a short session, which means only committees can introduce bills. And the budget work that they do is just really minor revisions of last year's budget. So there were a lot of people who felt like they were shut out of last year's budget, who were hoping they could make some changes this year. But one of the first things they did in the last session was to renew a set of fiscal guardrails that is making it very difficult to spend money. And we all know that the primary thing that early childhood needs is more money. And so that creates a conflict. So we have a Senate and a House of Representatives. The Senate's got 36 members. Each senator represents about 100,000 people. And then we have a House of Representatives with 151 House members, each representing about 25,000. If you've ever been in a group of 150 people, it's pretty hard to make decisions. So they organize themselves in committees. Each committee has a process for deciding which bills they're going to consider. Then they hold a public hearing on those bills. And then they vote to decide which ones they want to advance to the full House or Senate. Our committees are joint committees, so you have a House chair and a Senate chair of each committee. Right now, well, last week, the Appropriations Committee had their hearings on the early childhood budget. Today was the first set of hearings in the Education Committee about education bills. And there's a governor's bill that would implement some of the Blue Ribbon Panel's proposals. There will be a hearing, I think, tomorrow in the Children's, or maybe it's, yeah, tomorrow, in the Children's Committee that wants to require all family child care providers to have liability insurance. There will be a bill that comes up talking about family child care incubators. There probably will not actually be a bill about changing the kindergarten age. Those are some of the issues that are floating around that relate to early childhood. And the first thing that has to happen is you have to get a committee to decide that they're going to raise an issue for a public hearing. And then after they've had the public hearing, there's a lot of discussion within the committee members to decide which things they want to advance to the whole group. And I'm seeing Josephina's got her hand up. No, that's just my mouse over top of her. Never mind. I don't know why my mouse is showing up as a little hand instead of an arrow. So after the committees finish all of their hearings, which will be in March, that's when all of them will be wrapped up because this is a short session. Then we've got March and April when they're really working on trying to figure out what are the deals that are going to happen to make sure that things pass. I think the first thing that everybody needs to understand is that the legislature is not set up to pass laws. The legislature is set up to weed out ideas and make sure that only the ones that have a lot of support actually advance. So in a long session, there are thousands of bills. Usually only 100 or two actually pass. So there's a lot of weeding out that happens. So it's really important for us to have relationships with legislators to help them understand the story. Why is it important that something advance? Because the reality is that legislators are part-time. They might be somebody who is a small landlord. Okay, they understand the issues of being a small landlord. They may not understand healthcare issues. They may not understand early childhood issues, and they could get assigned to the Public Health Committee or the Education Committee. And they've got to scramble and try and figure out, how to learn about this issue that they're being faced with, but they're also going to have lots and lots of other issues coming at them. And folks rely on the people that they know. They listen to people from their district. They start to figure out which people can give them information that's useful, whether that's a lobbyist or that's a legislator or that's somebody who's testifying at a hearing. So they sort things out. Occasionally there's some alcohol involved in all of these meetings, but there's a process, and there are also deadlines. So a lot of bills tend to get done in the last 3 or 4 days of the session because there's got to be a deadline, or they just will talk and never get anything done. But that deadline also means that things get cut off. That good ideas that lots of people support just never made it to a vote in one chamber or the other. Bills have to get passed if it's a House bill, it has to get passed by the House first, then it goes to the Senate. And typically the two chambers don't get along. They each want the other one to pass some of the bills that they've already passed before they're going to do any of the other chambers. There's all kinds of politics that are involved in all of this. But I think the thing that's most important is if you don't already know your legislator, get to know them. Follow them on social media. Reach out, call them, see if you can, call their office, see if you could set up a time to have the legislator give you a call back when you're not in the middle of changing diapers and, feeding kids and all the other stuff that you're doing all the time. Figure out a time that's convenient to talk, and tell them about the issues that are important to you. Connect it to the work that the coalition's doing and our big ask of trying to create a new way that we can get more funding into this system. And so that's connecting it to the action alerts that are coming out from the coalition, and telling how your experience relates to that, to whatever the issue is. Whether it's not enough money for care for kids, meaning that families can't get on and you're not getting paid, or all of those sorts of things. It's important for legislators to hear from constituents about the problems.
Yeah. Thank you, Meryl. If I could ask just right quick while we have you. So 2 things popped up for me. Number one, how do people find out who their maybe legislators are, and maybe specifically ones that we really want to target, as it relates to early childhood education? And then the other question I had was, what do you say to the person that's like, me talking to my legislators, just me yelling into the void? They never respond to me. What would you say to that person, to those two?
There are a few legislators who are pretty out of touch, but for the most part, they want to know what it is that you care about. They're all up for election. in November, and they have to pay attention because somebody might run against them. So the first thing a legislator wants to do is to sort of figure out, okay, is the person who's talking to me a total crackpot? Or is this somebody who is a constituent, somebody who has a real experience that they need to relate to me? There are, in every hearing, there will be the crackpot who will get up and talk about stuff that is totally unrelated. We had one of those today in the education hearing. And there are people who send emails to every legislator. Legislators want to know, am I talking to somebody who is my constituent who could vote for me? And then what's the issue? And then the next question is, how can I help? Once you've established that you're a normal person who lives in the district and you got a real problem, they want to know, what do you think would help solve this problem?
Cool. Yeah, and then how do they find Izzy? Yeah,
Pause.
go ahead.
I'm just changing bit interpreter again. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, yeah, and Izzy put in the chat that there's an email list and you'll get action alerts there.
Yeah.
My suggestion is that folks really think about and find out, do some research around who are the legislators that you really want to target, and then make concerted efforts to inundate them, to get things moving. Go ahead, Meryl.
So you can Google who is my state legislator, and there it'll come up with something that will help you find your state legislator. On the CGA website, which is CGA, Connecticut General Assembly, .ct.gov, you'll find information about how to find your legislator. There'll also be information about, you could look up committees, and you could look at each of those committees and see, who's on that committee, who's the members of that committee, and is my legislator one of them? Or you look up your legislator and it'll list which committees they are part of. So this year, the Education Committee is important, the Appropriations Committee is important, and the Finance Committee are really important.
Excellent.
Most legislators are on either finance or approps.
Great. Thank you, Meryl. That's really practical. Good. Any questions for clarity directed towards Meryl or the team around how to navigate our legislative system?
So one last thing, you may know who your legislator is, and that's great, but do you have their cell phone number?
I don't.
Make that your goal, to engage in a conversation with a legislator and then say, hey, what's the best way for me to get in touch with you? Can I get your cell? Because there are times when you may want to text them.
Yeah, I saw Izzy before and then Daniela or Danny.
Danny, go ahead. I just wanted to do a quick follow-up. I'm going to do a screen share. So go ahead, Danny.
I was just clapping about the cell phone number thing because I thought that was very funny and practical.
Yes, let it be awkward. Can I get your number? Excellent. Izzy, it's on you.
Sure. I'm going to share my screen. Also, don't forget they work for you. This is not, there's no, in the hierarchy, people are often intimidated by their legislators. Please don't be. They work for you. This is their job to make your life better. And they can't do it if they don't know what that means. If you sign up for our email action alerts, oftentimes they'll say there's a public hearing, click here for the details to testify, to sign up. So this is an example of the one from today. I wanted to show you all. You'll get to it. It'll tell you your small action. And this one was, please share our social media. Your medium action, this only takes a few minutes more, use our testimony builder to sign a letter. And then our large action is, if you have time, please sign up to actually testify on Zoom. And so I just wanted to show you this. You can click usually the medium action to actually just write a quick email. And you can click the large action to sign up to testify. When you click our testimony builder, it will take you to this. Can you see the screen change?
Yep.
Yes. This is our testimony builder. We are going to use the same URL for the entire session. So hit your little star up here, bookmark it. It will always be linked in our emails. And it's what it says on the left is they're doing all of this work. And every week there's something new for you to make your voice heard on. And we are going to do this part, which is the form. We're going to change this every week for the relevant hearing. And so this makes it really easy for you to go to the same place every time, and you can just click in. Okay, today we were talking to the education committee. So this form tells them, I want you to support these particular bills. I want you to support the blue ribbon panel, the kindergarten start age. And you at any point in here, see, look, there's a typo. I can do that. You can anywhere you want. You can go in here and add your own information. You can say, right up at the top, my name is so-and-so, I live in this town, I care about this because I have a 2-year-old and we can't find care. And then you can let us write the rest of it for you if you'd like. And then at the end, you literally just say, add your voice. So it's a very simple thing. If you don't want to add anything of your own, you can literally just first name, last name, support or general comment, email address, and just hit add your voice. You don't actually have to type anything in. But if you have a couple of sentences you can write, that is very helpful. And every time there's a hearing, we will change this for the appropriate bill or thing that we are pushing for. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Can you keep that? Can you keep that on the screen, Izzy? Can you keep it?
Sure thing.
I just wanted to add that when Danny, Izzy, myself, and the team, and I say team because there's a campaign committee. Some of you participate in additional CCFCT meetings. You know, we meet you where you want to be. So if you don't have the ability, because you're busy people, to come to campaign committees meetings, then totally okay. We do, you know, all the background work to make sure that you have tools that are easy to use. With that said, whenever you see this tool and it says support, or it may say in the future oppose, know that that decision of supporting a legislation or opposing a legislation comes in conversation with our coalition partners. So if any of you are affiliated to a nonprofit or an advocacy organization that's part of the CCFCT continuum, for example, All Our Kin, Circle, CSCA, Voices, CBIA, each of these different nonprofits who participate have very specific opinions of certain legislation. And together as a team, we have to figure out, you know, decipher if we're going to take the general approach of supporting something or opposing something. If you as an individual, if you read the bill and it's not quite gelling with you, you of course always have the opportunity to write the letter and frame it in a way that you feel comfortable and make sure that you are completely okay with supporting or opposing. But when Izzy's scrolling down and highlighting that sample text, just know that we did the research. We figured out, okay, this bill does some help, and it's not quite what we want because we want a lot of money and we want an overhaul, but at least it's a step forward. And you can see how when we write this information, we're sometimes being very careful to not go all in, not give the legislature or the governor so much credit, because specifically this year, we haven't seen so far a legislative proposal that does everything that we need. There's been no magic wand of a proposal that fixes it to the point of saying, we're done, drop the mic, let's walk away. So that's a heads up I wanted to add.
Okay, and then just the final thing I'll say is, thank you for that, is that I'll share this link, but here you can get to the CGA website, you can get on our email list, you can get to our Instagram, Facebook, and then you can also go to our YouTube where you can see all of the amazing, oops, that's the wrong one, but you can see all of the amazing legislative testimony that our members have already given. And so if you aren't sure whether you can do it or not, go watch some other folks in our community testify. I mean, this amazing woman did it from her car. Like this is something you can do. And so watch some of these testimony just to see how people are doing it. And of course, we will hold your hand walking you through writing your testimony. So thank you.
Wow. We accomplished so much in this session. Thank you all so much, for the time. I'm looking into, I see you, Eva. So just right quick before I pass it, before I pass it back over, I just want to point out there are so many resources in the chat. Once we close out of here, all of that information will go away. So if you are on your phone, take a screenshot, right, of some of those links that are in the chat. Do it right now. Just go and just take them for yourself. And then later on, you can go and kind of track them down. If you're on your computer, open up a doc, Google Doc, Word document, and just copy and paste those links. Copy and paste the information that we talked about today, because we don't want to lose it. All right. We have 5 more minutes left in the session. Eva, I know you wanted to plug our Saturday deep dive. I wonder if I can just provide an opportunity for you to give people the information you want them to have.
Thank you. So again, I know some of you got in a little later. This Saturday, for the truly dedicated, motivated advocates on this call, if you want a deeper dive on how to use Chat GPT, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this thing called Chat GPT, AI, a robot making words happen for you. John Catalin, one of our coalition partners from the WISE, is going to walk us through how to use ChatGPT to draft testimony. So that way you don't have to do it for yourself, which is kind of crazy. Imagine a time where you want to say all the cool things and you don't have to do most of the writing. So he's going to walk us through that and how to use that tool. We're also going to be joined by Steffi Martinez, who's going to walk us through some storytelling, and we're going to do some role playing, setting the stage, talking to each other, seeing how we can take those conversations from the emails to public testimony to a conversation with your legislator on the phone, because you're going to have their cell phone numbers. Or maybe you're going to be able to physically go down to the Capitol, or maybe you see them in the supermarket, because they do have to live in your towns, right? That's why they're your legislator. So if you see them, stop them, tell them that you're not a stalker, but that you need 3 minutes to talk about early ed. So we'll do some practicing sessions this Saturday, and we hope to see you there.
Excellent. The words that I will leave you with is turn one day into day one. I'll say it again. Turn one day into day one. You're thinking, one day I'm going to talk to a legislator. Day one, do it today. One day I'm going to like and comment and share. Let it be today. All right. One small step made by a lot of us really makes a big difference. Thank you all so much for coming, and you all should have a great night.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you. Bye.